President Trump condemned racism and white supremacy on Monday morning, in the wake of back-to-back mass shootings over the weekend that killed a total of 29 people and wounded dozens more. One of the massacres took place moments after the suspected gunman posted a hateful manifesto online, the authorities said. In one voice, "Our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated," Mr. Trump said during brief public remarks at the White House that denounced the ideologies espoused by the suspected gunman in the attack at a Walmart store in El Paso. "Hate has no place in America," he continued. "Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart and devours the soul." Mr. Trump stopped short of embracing tighter restrictions on guns, and called instead for more focus on violent video games and mental illnesses. Earlier on Monday, Mr. Trump wrote on Twitter that Republicans and Democrats should come together to pass gun safety legislation, perhaps marrying it to new immigration laws, two issues that have long divided the parties. Read more about Mr. Trump's comments here. As twilight settled over Dayton on Sunday, hundreds gathered in the city's Oregon district, typically its good time precinct. But at a vigil less than 24 hours after a mass shooting killed 9 and wounded another 27 outside a bar in this neighborhood, the mood was a blend of sorrow and shock. Read more on the victims in the Dayton shooting. People, even strangers, grasped each other in long, tear-shuddered hugs. Old friends of those who died stood alongside those who had escaped gunfire. A group from Cincinnati that travels the country offering free hugs after mass shootings held up signs. On Saturday, after a gunman stormed a Walmart in El Paso, killing 20 and wounding at least 26 others, the group began planning a trip there. Instead, they ended up traveling just 45 minutes down the road. No longer do people ask how something so terrible could happen in their city. Today, the question is how anyone would expect any place, no matter how familiar, to be immune from the terror of mass shootings. "I don't know why I'm surprised," said Sarah Quinones, 44, a regular in the district, rubbing tears from her eyes. "This happens all the time." From a stage in the middle of the street, religious leaders prayed, doves were released and a singer led the crowd in "Amazing Grace." When Ohio's Governor, Mike DeWine, a Republican, approached the microphone, the mood shifted, with loud shouts imploring him to do something. The group also chanted, "What do we want? Gun control." The mourners eventually quieted, and congressional representatives and other politicians followed. Candles were lit and a benediction was delivered. And then another mass shooting vigil came to an end. Over the last 2 years, and definitely the last year, it's unfortunately been in the back of my mind, when will it come here, said Clara Jackson, 56, a Dayton resident who would frequently go out in the Oregon district when she was younger. This is sadly moving into a normal. It's being normalized. When the suspected gunman in Dayton, Connor Betts, was a student at Bellbrook High School, he was accused of making a hit list that threatened fellow students, most or all of them girls, with violence or sexual violence, former students said. Ben Seitz, 25, recalled Mr. Betts as a pretty dark kid who was definitely into some gruesome stuff. Mr. Seitz, who was a year ahead of Mr. Betts in school, remembered him making inappropriate remarks about girls. "He definitely stuck out," Mr. Seitz said. Mr. Betts became notorious at the school after news of the list circulated, said Mr. Seitz, whose girlfriend at the time was on that list. "I was friends with a lot of the girls in my class who were on the list," Mr. Seitz said. "They were obviously very, very scared." Another former Bellbrook student, Theo Gainey, recalled Mr. Betts being arrested on the school bus for making threats. Mr. Gainey, 25, who said he was on the bus when it happened, said that Mr. Betts had to leave school for the rest of that year. When he returned, the threat thing followed him, and people didn't want to hang out with him, Mr. Gainey said. Mr. Seitz, who moved away from Bellbrook, a suburb southeast of Dayton, soon after the incident, recalled a large police presence at the school after the list was discovered. He said he did not remember seeing Mr. Betts again. But when Mr. Seitz heard reports on Sunday that his former classmate had been involved in the mass shooting, he said he was not especially surprised. "One of my friends texted me that it was Connor Betts," Mr. Seitz said. "I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense." Unfortunately, the city was in anguish Sunday night, its residents hurt and shaken after a gunman stormed into a busy border Walmart, killing 20 people and injuring more than 24 others. Read more on the victims in the El Paso shooting. But the city was also defiant. A ubiquitous message had appeared across El Paso in signs and speeches at a vigil, and in prayers and in conversations: "Hate will not define us. We need to stand in solidarity with those in pain, but also speak truth to power," said Ruben Segura, who unfurled a large banner handwritten with that message before the large crowd gathered for the Sunday night vigil on a Little League baseball field near the Walmart where a gunman opened fire on shoppers early Saturday. Two nations come together in El Paso. The bustling Walmart exemplifies those ties. The shooting and its toll rattled El Paso. Yet on Sunday, the alarm grew into something deeper and even more troubling as residents grappled with another message, an odious one found in a 300-word anti-immigrant screed tied to the suspect, who decried a Hispanic invasion of Texas. On Sunday, the majority Catholic city turned to its church, with residents pouring into masses and prayer services and vigils. Some stopped by the site of the massacre, leaving flowers, candles or posters. Too many here, El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, on the other side of the border, are a shared community that happen to straddle two countries. It's a place where Spanish is spoken everywhere, and it is not uncommon to see large trucks with American and Mexican flags fluttering side by side from the back. The attack was a reminder of the undercurrent of the attention that has come to El Paso as thousands of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border into the United States. Many in the city linked the suspect's words to President Trump's rhetoric and broader animosity toward immigrants. News analysis: if the president did not originally inspire the gunman, he has brought into the mainstream polarizing ideas and people once consigned to the fringes of American society. But as morning flirted with anger, faith leaders in sermons and public addresses cautioned people to not let their emotions morph into the kind of fury that ultimately fueled the violence. The attack happened because somebody wanted someone else to suffer, the Reverend Benjamin Flores, a Roman Catholic priest and leader in the Diocese of El Paso, said after a prayer service on Sunday afternoon. "We cannot respond in the same way. We want to respond in a way where someone is healed." 8CHAN, the online message board where a hate-filled, anti-immigrant manifesto was posted minutes before the El Paso shooting, vanished from the internet on Monday and remained offline several hours later, after a San Francisco company decided to stop providing vital network services to the site. The forum went dark at about midnight in California. After the move was announced late Sunday by the company, Cloudflare, 8CHAN confirmed the change on Twitter and warned that an interruption in the site's connectivity would probably follow. "There might be some downtime in the next 24 to 48 hours while we find a solution that includes our email, so timely compliance with law enforcement requests may be affected," 8CHAN wrote on Twitter. The screed was posted minutes before the El Paso shooting, and the authorities said Sunday it was written by the suspected gunman. At least 3 mass shootings this year, including the mosque killings in Christchurch, New Zealand, and the synagogue shooting in Poway, California, have been announced in advance on 8CHAN, which has become known as a forum for racist views. "Shut the site down," HN's creator says. Law enforcement officials said the massacre in El Paso was being investigated as a case of domestic terrorism and as a hate crime. In a statement on Sunday, the FBI said that the attack underscores the continued threat posed by domestic violence extremists and perpetrators of hate crimes. Federal officials said the Bureau's Domestic Terrorism Hate Crimes Fusion Cell, which was formed earlier this year, was participating in the El Paso investigation. And the FBI's Cincinnati's office was helping the Dayton Police Department. We will bring the full resources of the FBI to bear in the pursuit of justice for the victims of these crimes, the Bureau's director, Christopher Wray, said in the statement. In the statement, the agency said it remains concerned that domestic violent extremists could become inspired by these and previous high-profile attacks to engage in similar acts of violence, and asked that people remain vigilant and report anything they deem suspicious to the authorities. Mexico demanded protections for Mexicans and Mexican Americans living in the United States and threatened legal action on Sunday, a day after the shooting at an El Paso Walmart that left Mexican citizens among the dead and wounded. Mexican authorities could seek to extradite the gunman on a terrorism charge and were planning legal action against the seller who provided the gunman with his weapon, said the foreign minister, Marcelo Ebrard. We consider that the issue of arms is crucial, he said. Mr. Ebrard also said the Mexican government would send a diplomatic note asking the United States to take a clear position against hate crimes. Read more about Mexico's response to the El Paso shooting here. Campbell Robertson and Mitch Smith reported from Dayton, and Rick Rojas from El Paso. Reporting was contributed by Eileen Sullivan from Washington, Elizabeth Malkin and Azam Ahmed from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, Ileana Magra from London, Amy Harmon from New York, and Sonia Chopra from Dayton.